You are listening to the Mindset Forge podcast, where athletes and performing artists discuss their biggest moments and mindset shifts that made them so successful. High-level athletes and performing artists understand how to show up for the big moments, how to be present and on point when everything counts. That's what I want to find out about, and that's what I want to help understand so that we can take some of those amazing nuggets and implement them in our own lives. I'm your host, Barton Bryan, and I'm an athlete. I'm a fitness coach. I'm a former actor and singer, and I love helping people discover their fullest potential. In this episode, I get the privilege of interviewing Chris Issendorf, one of the best ultra-marathon canoe racers in the entire world. If you've never heard of ultra-marathon canoe racing, well, buckle up. It's a fantastic and absolutely intense sport that can go up to 60 hours nonstop of canoe racing down a river. We're going to dive into his mindset before the race, during the race, and yes, the all-important question, what do you do when nature calls? So many great nuggets from this endurance athlete. And one of the biggest takeaways that I got was how he carves up a 30-hour race into 1 hour races in his head. How he uses math and figures out exactly how far he wants to be each hour, how fast he's going, how he can improve every single hour so he stays locked in and doesn't get distracted by the pain, by all the things that are going on in his body trying to quit on him. He does not listen. He focuses on 1 hour at a time. You may know nothing about ultramarathon canoe racing, but the things Chris is talking about are universal to sports, to anything you're trying to pursue at the highest level. All right, here we go. My interview with Chris Issendorf. I've specifically brought you on the show knowing that almost nobody will know why you're an incredible athlete or what the sport is that you're doing that is really like something kind of special and out there that people should know about. And that's ultramarathon canoeing. Before we get into kind of what you're up to and the whole sport itself, give us a little background on what exactly ultramarathon canoeing is.
I guess you would say ultramarathon canoeing or canoe racing is a canoe race that would go more than 8 to 10 hours. Some races go up to about 100 hours.
100 hours of straight canoeing?
Yes.
That's incredible. Okay, so tell us more. So you do partner canoeing. Tell us about that. What's the starting line look like? What do you have to do? What's the goal of the race?
We'll talk about one race in particular, the Texas Water Safari, which is the race that got me involved in the sport. You can be in any craft that's powered by your body, right? Anything from a single person boat up to a 6-man. What a 6-man rig looks like is a rowing scull, like you would see like a collegiate rowing scull, only we face forward and we use kayak paddles, right? Double blade paddle or a canoe paddle, which is a single blade paddle, like think Pocahontas with a paddle. And it's a mass start. Gun goes off and everyone goes like hell to get to the first portage on the river.
So you actually start not in the water, but with the canoe in your hand?
Some races start with a canoe in your hand a quarter mile from the river. Some races start in the water. The ones that start on the street, that's called a Le Mans start, right? You got to run as fast as you can down to the river, jump in, get in the boat, and get going before everybody leaves you without falling over.
So in a Le Mans start, the gun goes off. You sprint with your partner. You do mostly tandem, right? Two people.
Yeah.
You sprint with your partner. Is boat overhead? You carrying on the side of you? What's the technique
you can go
there?
Either way. I like to keep the boat low. I have a little more control over it that way. You know, you may be sprinting, running, and then have to pick it up a little more to pass somebody. And having the boat low allows your arm to swing a little and have some give. Whereas if it's up on your shoulder, you bump it up another mile an hour and it's on your partner's shoulder, it might come right off of his shoulder and hit the ground.
Gotcha. So that you carry it, run all the way to the river, throw it in the water, and then it is, how many hours is that taking somebody to get into the water and go the entire distance?
So in the Texas Water Safari, we start in the water. Everyone's lined up. There's 10 or so rows of teams. The gun goes off and you start on a lake. It's about a mile paddle to a dam, and you have to portage around the dam, portage is carrying your canoe around something, right? There's an obstacle you have to go around. And so it is a mad dash to get to that portage before other teams do, because there's only 2 or 3 trails and you've got 150 boats all trying to get there at the same time, right? And you leap out, grab a hold of the boat, and you run as fast as you can, get back in the water, back in the boat, and haul ass downstream.
All while not making a mistake, because you drop it, something happens, you trip, you bump into somebody.
Break a paddle, knock your drink jug out the back. If you jump in and flip over, you just lost a lot of stuff, including most likely your food for the next 4 hours.
Right. So you got to carry, because listeners, think about this. This is how long is the race for the Texas Water Safari? Just so we stay on that.
The Texas Water Safari is 260 miles.
Which takes how many hours?
Typically, the winning teams will finish between 35 and 40 hours, nonstop.
35 to 40 hours for the top teams. That means other teams are finishing plus 40 hours, maybe even 2 full days.
There is a 100-hour cutoff.
Oh my gosh. All right.
There's a lot of teams that come in that 99th hour.
So you're packing your bag with food for 2 days, water, everything you're going to need, and then you're just going nonstop. You're not stopping. There's no breaks. You're not pitching a tent and taking a nap. What's going on with that?
Typically, the people who are finishing in the 60-hour range probably haven't slept, right? So to finish in 35 hours, that's pretty fast. You can go 35 hours without sleep and not even really be hallucinating or having a hard time mentally. It also helps when you're in the lead, right? Knowing you're in a lead, knowing you're going to win. You get back to 55 hours, which I've been there a couple times. Yeah, if you don't pull over to sleep, your mind really, it drifts, right? And you can't trust what you're looking at anymore because you're just hallucinating so bad.
So tell us about the race where you guys got first place. And as far as I know, you hold the record for the fastest time. So tell us about that race, how it went for you.
So that race is called the MR 340. It's a 340-mile race down the Missouri River. It's a long, grueling event. Big river. The Missouri River is wide. It's about a half-mile wide. I didn't intend to do that race that year. I had planned on doing a Texas Water Safari, which happens in June. MR 340 happens in August, I think it was that year. So it's really hot. Texas Water Safari got delayed a couple times because the river was flooded, and then I didn't have the means to do the race. And then decided to do that MR 340. And I was going to do it by myself, but then realized it was probably better to do it with someone else because I hadn't done it before. So I reached out to my friend Phil, who was like a mentor to me. And he thought about it for a night and called me in the morning, was like, "You got everything figured out?" I said, "I got all the logistics. All I need you to do is come and drive the boat. I'll sit up in the front and I'll power it the whole way." He's been canoe racing for 30 plus years, and he's just real good with students. And I went to him to fix my form. You got to have good form, just like in running or riding. If your form is bad, you're going to waste a lot of energy. We don't bring all our food for the entire duration of the race. Shorter races, you do that. But in a long race like that, we're getting pit stops along the way.
Great. That's good to hear.
Yeah. You don't have to bring everything.
Sounds a little bit more reasonable.
There is divisions for that, right? The unsupported division, just like they have in a lot of ultra marathons and such. But I don't do that. We're racing too hard to be able to go without food. So that particular race, the river was almost in flood stage. When you talk about rivers, you talk about flow in CFS, cubic foot per second. And I want to say the river was around 200,000 cubic foot per second that year. So a lot of water. We got off to a good start. We pulled into the lead pretty much straight away. That race has 2 starts. Solo start, where all the solo boats go out an hour before the rest of the boats, I believe. And then everything else up to a 6-man boat. Can't have more than 6 guys in that race. A mass start with everything other than the solos. We got out into the front, and then it was just a game of maintain paddling hard, a pace that we needed to do to stay out in the lead and just continue gaining, right? And so it just becomes a game of eating, conserving energy without ever stopping.
As the listeners kind of hearing it, piecing it together for themselves, they're starting to have a visual, but a story would be fantastic.
So my wife signed on to feed for us. That's what we call it when she brings us food. And some other friends decided they were going to do the race as well and also asked her to feed for them. She agreed to that, right? Now, at the time, I had a 2-year-old daughter and an 8-year-old son, and they were with her. And on the first feed of the day, 4 hours into the race, we got our handoff from my wife. I took one sip of the jug and I realized it was not my food. It was like this fatty, congealed substance that I had never tasted, and immediately spit it out. And we got 4 to 6 hours to go to the next spot, and you have to eat. You can't just not eat.
Was it formula?
So everyone we drink liquid nutrition mostly.
Okay.
Right? Just like trail runners and ultramarathon. Sure. They'll drink super high sugar.
You're not eating a peanut butter sandwich in the canoe.
Not for the first day, right? Okay. If you're in an event that's going to go more than a day, yeah, you probably need to get some solid food in. But typically for the first day, we will eat liquid nutrition, out of a straw. We use half-gallon jugs. They'll sit behind us somewhere, and then we'll shove a tube through the top of that with a bite valve at the end to where you don't even have to stop paddling to eat. You're just kind of sucking your food in, keep on paddling, right? I use a mix called Spiz. S-P-I-Z-Z. It's a funny name. It's a meal replacement. And I think it was developed for people who had cancer, leukemia. Mm-hmm. They can't hold down any solid food. It's just like a super enriched powder formula that has everything your body needs to run on. And it also comes packed with B vitamins. So like tons of energy, right? Probably one of the secrets how we're able to just keep on going. It's a slow burning fuel, you get a lot of energy from it, but it's not like sugar where you just eat a bunch of sugar and you're ready to go. So it kind of keeps you at that ultramarathon pace. This was not Spiz. That was in the jug that I got. It was something else, and it was terrible. And I had a Bluetooth headset that I was supposed to be able to use to call in emergencies, right? And so I hold down that button and call my wife, and she didn't answer, so I left her a message. And the message was something like, hey, I don't know what you're thinking, but you gave us the wrong food and we're up here in the weed. You got to get it together or find somebody who is going to get it together and feed us the rest of the way. And hold down the cancel button. And immediately slump my head over. And this is the kind of guy I am. I always have. My wife calls it word vomit. I just say stuff without thinking and then regret it after.
Felt good in the moment. Not a good idea. All the husbands listening to this, do not do that.
Yeah. Phil immediately said, you didn't just say that to your wife, did you? And I kind of shook my head a little. I was like, yeah, I left her a message. He's like, oh man, we're not getting any more food for the rest of the race. At the very next handoff, we pulled in and I'm apologizing, as much as I can without losing too much. Oh, honey, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. And she just walked down, threw our jugs in the boat and said, Andrew's taking over feeding for y'all. And stormed off. I called her as soon as we left and left another message. It was about 20 minutes long. I'm so sorry, so sorry. Another thing that comes along with canoe racing is, of course, the unsung heroes, the people on the bank who are keeping you fed, keeping you going. When something's broken, they've got the replacement part, right? So you have to have this team of people on the bank following you down the river, right? Yeah. And they never get any of the glory, because you're the one racing, but without them, you couldn't do it.
So on the race that you end up having the best time in the history of that race specifically.
We set the record overall. We had the fastest time that had ever been done.
Yeah. You are deep into a relationship, nightmare, 20-minute phone call, trying to apologize all the while. I'm sure you got this anxiety, adrenaline, maybe that's your secret sauce right there. Like you just had this extra fight or flight valve going off and you're just spewing
at this point,
energy into your body.
I got to get to the finish line so I can really apologize the right way,
Drop to your knee at the finish line. Yes. Okay, so talk about mindset. Like you got Phil, your mentor, who's behind you, and he's kind of the rudder in a sense.
Yes.
And you're the power. You're up front, just pulling water, just digging that paddle in. Like, what's the mindset? How are you two guys working together to stay focused and win that race?
So we've got a GPS in front of me.
Okay.
Every 10 minutes, we had it set on ultra mode so it can last up to 50 hours. And every 10 minutes, it would ping and give us our average speed for the previous 10 minutes. And it became like a game between Phil and I. It would ping. He would say, what did it say? 10.1. Good. Pick it up. Yeah. 10 minutes later, it would ping. What did it say? The same thing. What was that? 10.1. Good. Pick it up. And it just every 10 minutes. That was our communication at that point. 10 minutes. What's the speed? Good job. pick it up. We need to go faster. If ever it went below 10, I got scolded. Hey man, what are you doing? Are you not eating the right food? What's going on up there? Come on, we got to go. Yeah.
So were you ahead the whole time? Was this one of those times where you guys had the lead and you just knew you couldn't let it go?
So taking the lead early on in a race, especially an ultramarathon, is a commitment because you don't know what the competition is doing. You don't know what they're up to. You don't even know if they're working hard. They could just be back there just taking it easy.
Waiting for you to burn all your energy out.
Waiting to use it in the last couple hours, you know? And so taking the lead is really a commitment. You have to be careful at that point. You take the lead, you've got to switch into energy management. Okay, can't burn out. Got to be able to do this for the duration of the race and have to have just a little bit more to pick it up if I have to, right? Typically in canoe racing, things work themselves out pretty fast. If you're in a lead by a half of an hour, unless you mess up, you've got it in the bag, right?
It's hard to catch up by a half hour towards the latter half of the race. Is that the point there?
Exactly. Boats, canoes don't go that much faster than each other, right? Within divisions, right? If you're racing basically the same boat as someone else, it's not like they can just paddle 10 heartbeats a minute more and go a mile an hour faster. They may go 0.1 mile an hour faster. So to close a big gap takes an immense effort, right?
Yeah.
Like superhuman effort. It's been done. It's happened. But we're having to watch out for that.
Yeah.
We're managing energy. You're also trying to make sure that you're on the fastest line in the river, right? There's current in the river. Not all current is the same. You could be on the right side of the river. There's current over there, but that current's moving at 3 miles an hour. You could be 100 foot to the left and the current's moving at 2 miles an hour. That means you're going a whole mile an hour slower, right? Current tends to follow the channel of the river. In the Missouri River, being half mile wide, it's really hard to tell where the channel is. Mm-hmm. They have channel markers, but they're so spread out and the river was really high, so a lot of them were just pushed underwater. Current was just heaving them down underwater. And every once in a while, they'd come shooting up out of the water like a bomb. They'd kind of bob up, down, and then go back under the water in this real heavy current, you know? Things like that are constant. You're having to watch out for obstacles because we're coming at them at 10 miles an hour. During the day, it's not hard. But when it gets dark, you can't really see anything anymore. And so you're really having to make sure that we're staying in the channel. And so we got a GPS running. You know, I didn't know we needed a GPS. Phil did. So he downloaded the Navionics app to his phone for free trial. A few hours into the first night, we realized the app wasn't working that great. You know, the screen kept popping up like, do you want to pay for membership? So he's having to like stop paddling to hit the no button and just let me use it for free, please. We caught up to the fastest solo competitors. They started an hour ahead of us. It took us all day to close that 1 hour gap. There was 2 guys in the lead. They were right next to each other. They're drafting each other, right? One is riding the other one's wave. We got in the mix there and they both started drafting us. We told them, hey, if you help us run through Lisbon Bottoms, we'll stay on our single blade paddles and go slow enough for you to stay on our wave. Once we get through that section, we're going to go. And if you can hang on, great. If you can't, we're going to keep on going.
Yeah.
All right, deal. So now we have this partnership in the middle of the night. There's thunderstorms coming up behind us. It was crazy. The water was moving so fast. At that point, our GPS was ticking off 14 miles an hour averages. Little ping. Hey, what's the speed? 14. Oh, shit. Pick it up. So we're going past obstacles that are just, if you get too close, it's going to suck you in. You're going to lose the boat. Real good chance of like getting sucked under. But we got through it unscathed and we let him know we're switching to doubles. Good luck with your race. He was set up to break the solo record as well. And for the next 15 hours, we were on our own. Those are the times where it gets hard to keep going, right? You go through the night. I think that race started at maybe 10 a.m. And so you get to 2 o'clock the next day. You've paddled all day the first day, all night that night. And now the sun comes back out and it's 100 degrees and you're burning up and you're in the middle of this river and it's hot. Those are the times where it gets hard to stay focused.
This is fantastic because I think one of the things that I really want to figure out with questions of someone like yourself, very few people can do what you're doing for 3-4 hours, much less 30 plus hours. You get into the last 10, 15 hours of the race, you're ahead, which is a very unique place to be. Most of the time, if you're behind and you see the person in first, you got a goal. You just want to, catch them by a yard every 10 minutes and hey, you kind of do the math. I'm going to catch up. We're going to get that guy. But when you're ahead, it's you and destiny. So talk to us about that moment and about the mindset you have to be in, trusting the preparation, trusting the hard work and the training you put in, but also not making a stupid mistake that might derail the finish.
And there's so many mistakes you can make. Simple things like dragging a fingernail across the gunwale of the boat and pulling it back could change the whole race for you, right? Tearing open a hand. At that point, your hands are real soft. They've been wet for 24 plus hours. The mindset you have to be in, you have to be able to ignore pain, right? Because there's a lot of that. Doesn't matter how much you train, doesn't matter how many hours you put into the boat. When you do anything physically for 24 plus hours, there's going to be pain and you're going to be uncomfortable. You've got to be able to deal with that and just kind of push it down. And, for me, in those times where it's real hard and you start thinking about the other things you could be doing, right? Man, I could be at home drinking a beer. I could be fishing, I could be riding a motorcycle if that's what you're into. You can just be sitting on the couch watching TV and your mind will go those places because it is tired and your body hurts and everything hurts. In those times, I like to think of other times where it's been a lot harder. And I have one particular time that I go back to, which was the first time that I had to push through and keep on going through the night and making the decision to keep on trucking and not stop and know that if you stop, it's just going to take that much longer to get to the finish line or the end of the goal. For me, when I commit to doing something, I'm going to do it, right? And I'm not going to stop. And I know that. I've learned that about myself. So before I sign up for something, I make sure that I'm ready to go through whatever it takes to achieve that goal. There's a lot of demons that just kind of scratch at you. Just Phil and I are out there in the middle of this big wide river. No one around. We'd go through sections where you wouldn't see a house for 2 hours. It's just, you're out there working hard and it hurts and you don't want to talk to each other anymore. You've been in the same boat for a long time. You've said everything there is to say, right? You've heard all the jokes.
Phil has said, pick it up 25,000 times, right?
And at this point, every time he says, what does it say? You're like, oh, you know what it says, but you can't do that because you can't let negativity enter the race. You can't let anything pull you down if you want to be competitive, right? You have to be on your game the whole time and just keep thinking toward, well, all right. So for me, I like to calculate. All right. If we keep up this speed for the next 4 hours, we're going to go this distance. Well, if I can just bump it up just a little bit, we could go 0.1 faster. Well, now I've got a whole new set of calculations to make. When you haven't slept for 24 hours,
whatever gets you
take you
there.
3 or 4 hours to calculate. And so, believe it or not, I will spend a lot of time out there just calculating numbers, just running numbers. I'll get to a point where I see my bank crew, and I know the mileage at that spot. It's predetermined. I'll have a split sheet in the boat, set a goal time. I hope to be at this point by this time, and when you get there, you look at the time and maybe you're ahead of time, maybe you're behind time. That's where the calculation starts. Okay, I got to this spot 8 minutes ahead of time. If I keep up that pace, I could get to the next spot 12 minutes ahead of time. And the calculation goes all the way to the finish line. Well, then you get to that next spot, you're 15 minutes ahead of time. Calculation starts all over again.
Yeah. What I love about that is, as a trainer, one of the things that I do with people who tend to be over emotional when they want to quit because it hurts. And they think about left brain, right brain. The right brain is kind of affects the left side of the body, which is the feeling side, the creative side. But if we focus a lot in that, in feeling pain or feeling or worry and that kind of stuff, it really can take us down a rabbit hole of I got to quit. I got to stop. Right. And so one of the things I do is I tell them, count the reps, just count. Because when we count, it's the math side. That's the opposite side of the brain. And that takes us out of the feeling and into the analytical, the goal, the will. And so I love that you're doing math. I mean, you're not just counting reps, but you're putting your brain, whether you realize it or not, you're putting your brain in the side of, in the place that it needs to be in to stay willful, focused, and, creating kind of goals for yourself to hit so that you can stay focused on straight ahead and not wallow or feel all this stuff. And just because, I don't even have a comprehension of what it feels like to be 30 hours into that type of rigorous, physical. The Ironman triathlon in Kona is 7 to 10 hours.
Yeah.
Right. Like you guys haven't even hit, a quarter of the way through at 7 hours to this race. And so
getting warmed up.
Right. Y'all are getting warmed up. So the mind game that you have to develop and that as a high level athlete, you have to be in is just at a whole different level. And so just you saying that so matter of factly, I love it because to me, did anyone ever tell you, hey, you should think about math to keep your brain and your body kind of in the right spot? Or did you just kind of do that?
I think nobody ever told me that, but good advice that I got was break a long race up into small races, right? Those small races end up being from feed to feed, handoff to handoff. You can take a 340-mile race and break it down into 7 races. All right, it's 40 miles from here to where I get my next food. And you just go about it that way. And it's small races, and it takes the whole big picture and just shrinks it down. If you try to think about it as a whole, oh my God, it's a huge daunting task.
You just look ahead, this half-mile wide river. Just endless, just water. There's nothing, right?
There's nothing. And the water just keeps coming. And sometimes when your demons are really scratching at you, oh my God, that handoff spot, you think it's 30 minutes away, it's an hour away, and it just always seems like it's further away. Yeah. And you'll get to a landmark or something you remember, right? If you've done a course already, oh man, I remember that. This bend. It's just around the corner. And so you go, yeah. We're going to be there real soon. Oh man, it's just around the corner, guys. And then somebody in the boat goes, no, that was the false bend. It's about 5 or 6 more bends. And this crushing blow. Yeah. And there's a lot of buildup to, it's almost like you're finishing small races within these big events because you're looking so forward to getting to that checkpoint. Mm-hmm. You can't wait to see the people who are there supporting you. Oh man, I can't wait to see him. I'm going to get out of the boat. I'm going to stretch. I'm going to get out and use the restroom. Man, I got something brewing. I got to go use the restroom. Well, you're looking forward to getting there. And then you get close. And then my mind starts going, okay, I got to get in and out of here real fast, right? I got to do this quick because the more time you spend pulled over on the bank getting food, competition's catching up. And so it goes from, oh man, I'm going to stop. I'm going to get in the water. I'm going to take a break to, I got to get in and out of here as fast as I can. And so like when you do come around a bend and you see the bridge and you see a light or a car or a truck, or you just see a person waving, oh my God, there they are. This is almost over. At least you feel that way. And this elation sets over you and all the pain goes away. And all of a sudden your technique is perfect because people can see you, right? I got to look good. My technique can't be bad. There's cameras and stuff. And I'll come pulling in there and just give me everything. Hurry up. Come on. I'm throwing my empties out. Get it in the boat. And a lot of times I won't even stop. The boat will just keep drifting. They'll yank the old out, throw the new in, and I'll blast out of there as fast as I can, right? Because you don't want to waste time. And so now you're riding on this high. You've just seen people. They kind of pull you out of that bad mental state. And 30 minutes down the river, you go, oh, shit, I forgot to use the bathroom. Right? Yeah. And it starts all over again.
The funny part is, as I'm thinking about what this must be like, going to the bathroom is actually one of the questions that comes up for a lot of people. Like so do they have just rest stops, or is it just like go to the side of the road, like river, and just run out in the woods and do your thing? Like what's going on there?
Inevitably, this is always the first question that comes to people's minds. When we tell them we go nonstop, well, how do you go to the bathroom? Well, there's some stuff that we do that people probably don't want to know about. And like you can pull over and you can use the restroom. You can pull over every 6 hours if you want. To be competitive, you're not pulling over. We will pee in the boat and just not even stop paddling. The guys who are real good and can control their bladder that way, they just let it go. and then splash water up in the boat, either drop a bailer. We have water evacuation systems in the boat, right? Which could be what's called a drop down bailer. You kick it down, it kind of opens a little door at the bottom of the boat and it sucks all the water out that's in there. Or you can have a bilge pump, an electric bilge pump, just like what's in a motorboat, right? Sure. Ski boat, John boat. I'm sure for many of us have seen one. We'll rig those into our boat with a 10 AA lithium battery pack. And so you go to the bathroom, kind of splash your lap a little bit, put a bunch of water in the bottom of the boat, and you kick that bilge pump on, send it out the side. Now, I will say, at the end of a long race, the boat's pretty skanky. As for number twos, that's something you pull over for. I do know some guys who can just kind of aim it outside the boat and let it rip, and then they just get back to paddling.
Oh my gosh.
There's guys who will go further. There's guys who will, not in Texas water safari paddling. Texas water safari.
There's probably some rules around that.
There's not rules, but the pace isn't super fast most of the time. You're going because it's a 260 mile race, you're keeping yourself in reserve a little bit because you got to make it 260 miles. So you got to pull over for 2 or 3 minutes to empty out. You do that. Yeah. It's okay. You've got a lot of time to make it up. There are other canoe races in the northern United States. One in particular that I've been training for 2 years, called the Au River Canoe Marathon. It is the Indy 500 of canoe racing. All the boats are identical, 2 people per boat, and it is balls to the wall paddling as hard as you can go for 120 miles. If you miss a paddle stroke, someone will pass you. It's amazing how it is such close quarters. That's where you'll be in a pack sometimes of 7 boats wide, doing 8 to 10 miles an hour down a creek. And that race starts at 9 o'clock at night, right? The sun at that time of the year up in the north, it gets dark at about 10:30. But you're fresh and paddling as hard as you can paddle all night long. Just careening down this little creek that crosses the state of Michigan. Doesn't cross the whole state, but starts kind of to one side and goes all the way to Lake Huron. There's no time for stopping to go to the bathroom in that race. You've got to go number 2. You figure it out. I've heard of guys kind of pooping in their hand and throw it out of the boat and just kind of rinse it off as much as they can. I've heard of guys not actually getting it out of the boat, and it's just kind of sloshing around down in there,
Mindset right there. This is one of those things where I think, so many people, the reality is when you put yourself into something like this, you're putting yourself in a position that 0.5% of the population could even handle, right? And so you have to put yourself in a place where you're willing to make choices that the average Joe just would even think is absolutely ridiculous, disgusting. I would never do that. That's not in me. But when the finish line is on the line and we got to do what we got to do, however you negotiate that for yourself, I think it's a choice that probably every racer has to make and kind of where they draw the line for themselves. But I mean, if winning is everything, and it sounds like it is, you do what you have to do.
You got to be willing to poop in your hand.
You heard it here, folks. The raw truth. Hey, that's fantastic. So you're talking about this is kind of the Indy 500. The Au River is the Indy 500 of ultramarathon canoeing. So this is coming up with COVID. You kind of missed your shot last year.
Yes.
So this is 2 years in kind of mentally, physically training for this event. What's your mindset in preparation right now going towards this event? And then I want to go back real quick to the end of the other race just for a sec. But let's talk about mindset and how you're preparing for it.
So it's been a roller coaster. Like I said, training for 2 years. The race did get canceled last year. Put in a lot of hours getting ready for it. It got canceled. That was a big hit. But my partner and I decided that we weren't going to let it get us down. We're going to keep on training and we're going to be ready. We train through the year round. We try not to get out of shape. So for me, I don't like to canoe real hard all year long. So I will trail run in the off season for 3 months to keep my fitness up. I run on trails because I'm a big guy. I'm 6'3" and 190 pounds. I have run on the road I try to stay off the road now. Trail running is just much easier on my body.
Yeah.
So I'll trail run for 3 months, and then I will switch to a lot of gym workouts, weightlifting, right? This year I've been powerlifting to just build as much strength as I can without putting on a lot of weight. Weight is really important when you're talking about canoe racing, especially the Au Sable River. You got to be trimmed down to the muscle, 6% body fat. The mindset going into it, there is a team that's won that race every time they race. I want to say they've won 10 or 11 times out of the past 13 years, right? And that's what you're up against. That's 3 years ago, I committed myself to trying to beat that team with a partner. Got real close in 2019, had an incredible race with a guy from up in Michigan, local guy, amazing athlete. We managed to get third place. We got on the podium, which no one thought we can do.
And the only Texan to ever do it, correct?
I'm the only paddler from Texas to ever get on the podium, yes, in what's called a Triple Crown race. Au Sable is one of those. The winning team beat us by 5 minutes, right? To reel in that 5 minutes, it's just been a year in the making. The race comes at the end of July. During a race where we got third place, I looked back on that race, saw where my inefficiencies were, where I could do better, what we were lacking. For me, I was lacking sprint speed. I could grind for 14 hours and 20 minutes straight, nonstop. Don't need to eat, just liquid nutrition, keep it coming in. Don't need a lot, but I did not have the sprint speed to be able to get away from other boats. Pretty much the past 2 years have been dedicated to building that sprint speed, just that extra gear.
Somebody might ask you, why? Why do you put yourself through something so rigorous, so hard? What is it about ultramarathon canoeing that makes you want to do it?
I've asked myself the question so many times. I have a family. I've got kids. I've got so many other things that I could be doing. And I ask myself, why do I train so hard for this? Because it is, people look at it as like a silly sport, right? We're racing canoes. Like you said when we got started, nobody's going to know what we're talking about.
And it's not like you're in the NBA making millions of dollars from this sport. It's for the trophy and the honor.
Yes, it's for pride. This particular determination, I think, for the water safari, I did it because I knew people who did it and they were tough, right? These were guys and girls who I could look up to and go, wow, these are tough people, right? And they love something so much that they're willing to go this distance to achieve that goal. I wanted to be part of that, right? I want to be tough. I want my friends to look at me and go, wow, this guy, he could paddle 260 miles without stopping, Well, I did that and I got into that. And then the people who had been doing it a long time started telling me about this race up north. Oh yeah, you think you're fast because you do good at races here. You got to go up there and race those. Those are the real canoe athletes, right?
Right. Texas, this is like the amateur leagues. You go up to Michigan, Canada, That's where the pros are.
These guys are the real deal.
Yeah.
And man, they were. Here I thought I was a big, tough guy. Went up there for the first time in 2016. And I will never forget, me and my partner, we were in 22nd place. And we were literally racing two girls that were like in their early 20s. They're like 5'5" strong athletes, the best at their sport, and they still are. But here I'm 6'3", 200 pounds, muscled up, and my buddy's super strong paddler, and they beat us. They beat us in the last 5 miles of the race. They just beat us down and just used technique to just whoop up on us. It was so devastating. We both get to the finish
bruised
line.
ego.
Oh
Yes, of course, the bruised ego.
Well, and so I realized that then, wow, these guys are the real deal. They know how to move these boats like nothing I've ever seen. Like they're using the currents in the river and just they're popping shallow sections of the river and surfing their own waves, and they're making it look so easy, right? Canoeing at this level is super technical. There is so much going on in the river, in the currents, in the depth of the river, right? Depth comes up and down, changes how hard it is to paddle the boat. You have to do certain things to keep the boat moving fast through all this stuff. I think I've got way off the subject we were talking about.
And I think you're discovering kind of the why behind
the why.
The why.
So I start to realize all these things and I love it. I started doing it and just got addicted to it, right? You go out for a training run, 3 or 4 training runs, and you work on one particular thing and all of a sudden you can do it better. Oh my God, I got this now. Well, now I'm going to work on picking up my stroke rate in this kind of water. Do that and it comes together. All these little pieces of the puzzle, they start coming together and now the boat's moving pretty quick. Well, I started remembering back to when people were telling me, like, you Texan can never win that race. And so I'm a pretty outspoken guy out there saying, well, why? Why can't we win? Are you not willing to put in the work? And I keep getting the same answer, it's impossible. They know the river so well. They've been paddling these boats their whole lives. We've been paddling these other boats. They got it all figured out. And I said, I'm going to learn how to do this better. Learn how to do it better. Signed on with a teammate. There is one particular moment that stands out in my mind. Signed on with a teammate. Ian Rolls is his name, one of my closest friends. We train super hard. We go up, we do this race. We end up finishing 7th place. Way better than we thought we could do. Not many teams, just to make it into the top 10 teams in this race takes a monumentous effort, right? We finish the race. I go to the hotel that we're going to stay at up in Michigan. And the guy who won the race was there at that hotel. And I could see he was in the same position I was in, meaning I finished the race. My wife had fed me the whole way. I got done, drank a couple beers. She handed me the baby and was like, here you go. I'm going to bed. And was gone.
You think you've done work. I've been taking care of this baby for the last 40 hours.
And so I guess she was about 3 years old at the time. And so I go down to the pool in the hotel, and I got a cooler full of beer because at the time I still drank a lot. I don't drink anymore. And here's this guy who just won the race, right? He's down there with his kids, no wife in sight. Hey, you need a beer? Oh, yeah. And so we sit there and drink beer together for a little while. We start getting a little loose, and he starts to loosen up. He's a pretty quiet guy. He doesn't have much to say. And I think he was reflecting on his race, and he said, nobody can beat me and Steve. Steve is his partner. These are the 2 guys who have won so many times.
That have won 11 of the last 13.
Yes.
He just comes out and says, nobody can beat us.
He's just reflecting back on his day.
Don't say that.
And I looked at him and I said, you don't think? No. So many teams have tried. Nobody can beat us. That is the moment where I was like, okay, I found my calling, right? Like immediately that burned into me and I was like, oh, no. You're not going to sit next to me and say that, And so, yeah, I've committed a lot of time to this goal. And if it happens, it'll be amazing. Unfortunately, his partner's from Canada. Right now, the border's closed. I don't know if a lot of the Canadian racers will be coming down to do the Au Marathon. And that particular fella, his name is Andy, had back surgery in January. So there's no way that he's going to be the same guy come July. Right.
That was the motivator. And I love that. I mean, I think of the Last Dance, Michael Jordan, just like coming up with narratives of like people saying stuff, even if it wasn't true. He just wanted something to fuel him.
Something to fuel that fire.
Oh, man.
They're better than me.
For the main guy, like for the top dog to turn to you and say, nobody will ever beat us. Like that is the greatest gift
ever for me in my canoeing, the greatest gift ever. I've told a couple people this and they laugh and blow it off. It really is my motivation. Like every time I try to find that reason, why am I still working so hard to this particular goal? It's him. It's that. It's what he said to me that day. That is the first thing that comes to my mind. And it's the only thing I can come up with,
That's the competitor mindset. There are plenty of people out there that somebody tells them they can't or they never will, whether it's directed at them or somebody makes an offhanded comment and it crushes them, or it puts them in a place where they feel like I can't do this. I'm out of my league here. And it literally just picked you up and put you in the space that you can now be competing for the top prize. Whether or not they're there or not, you know their times.
I know their
That's
times.
the great thing. You know what the time is that you need to get to say, on the river or not, we beat you.
Yeah. Can't beat them if they don't show up to race.
But you can beat history.
I can beat history.
Yeah.
There's a record.
There's a record.
I don't know if we'll be chasing down a record, but we'll be trying like hell.
So take us back to the MR 340.
Okay.
You and Phil paddling, you're in the lead. You know you really have this. You crossed the finish line. How are you feeling in that moment?
So in that moment, there was a reoccurring theme with me and finish lines. The last couple hours of the race, I was driven by beer, right? Literally, I just over and over again, oh God, I need a cold Bud Light. I need a cold Bud Light. I don't know if I could drop names on a podcast.
Sure. Maybe we'll get Bud Light as a sponsor from that.
Yeah, maybe so. I drank enough of it. They should sponsor me. So that's what I'm thinking about. Okay, Bud Light's coming. We've got 8 or 10 miles left to the race. We know we got it in the bag. We heard at the last feed, closest competition is hour and a half back, right? Closest boat. Phil has done this race before. We see this bend. He goes, hey man, it's 5 miles from here to the finish. Let's burn up everything we got. Let's go, switch to the double blades and just start pounding the water. And I'm pounding, my heart's racing. The miles are not coming fast because big river, not a lot of things where you can see how fast you're moving. And then this headwind hits, right? We turn a corner and there's like a 20-knot headwind blowing straight into our face. 2-foot waves. We're taking water in the boat. Now we're using the bilge pump and everything changes, right? In the last hour of the race. We've had tailwind the whole way, super fast current flying down the river, just relatively easy paddling, all things considered. 5 miles from the race, we get this 20-knot headwind in this 2-mile straightaway of the river. And I've got to buckle down, head down, and just paddle as hard as I can because Phil is still going. I want to finish under 34 and a half hours. That was his goal at that point. We need to finish under 34 hours and 30 minutes. Okay. Pounding away. We finally get out of the headwind, see the bridge, sprinting. We sprinted the whole way in at that point because you never want to finish with anything left in the tank. I had a hard time getting out of the boat because of all that sprinting, right?
You're done. You got nothing.
I'm smoked. That's it. We're done. And
34 hours and 34 minutes.
34 hours, 34 minutes. Mm-hmm. Coincidentally in a 340-mile race, right? I kind of roll out of the boat onto this dock and I'm trying to stand up, but I can't really stand up. My body is it's ready to quit. And all I can remember is my wife wasn't there because she was feeding for this other team. A friend, Andrew, had taken over feeding for us. And I'm just trying to, where's Andrew? And all these people are trying to shake my hand and pat us on the back. Oh, yeah, amazing race. And I'm just trying to find Andrew amongst this crowd while I'm laying on the dock. And I see him and he sees me and I make the motion for beer. I need a beer. And he brings the whole cooler over. And now these people are trying to stand me up, and they finally get me on my feet. And I'm literally just want a beer. It's the only thing I'm thinking about. And they're introducing me to the governor of the state and the town or whoever, the mayor, I don't know who it was. And they're, he's this big deal and he's coming down the walkway and they got a news crew and they're trying to film this whole mayor comes down the stairs or governor and shakes my hand and he's been a part of the race or something. And I remember I was send him to Phil. I just want my beer. Leave me alone. And I walked over, I got the cooler and Phil put his hands up in the air I ain't doing no interview. And they asked us a couple questions and we finally got through that. And then we kind of slumped over this hay bale that was sitting there. I'd love to tell you there's some big romantic celebration. No. And at the end of a canoe race,
you're just exhausted. You got nothing,
man.
Yeah.
You go that hard for that long and you're shot.
Well, and it's probably less about the beer as much as it's about like the thing that you put out there that said, when I get there, this
this is the first thing I'm doing. Yeah.
And I'm all in. You know, it's like, I'm all in.
1,000% all in.
This interview was done back in June, and here we are in late August, and that Osaba River Classic already happened. He ended up getting third place. Unfortunately, the two guys, one of them talked to him by the pool, what you heard in the podcast, and said we would never be beaten. They did not make it. One of them had a bad back. The other one couldn't get it down because of the border Quebec with COVID. And so they were out of the race. What he and his partner Logan did, they went 10 minutes faster than they'd ever gone before, including back in 2019 when they got third. It just happened to be there's two other teams that went even faster. In fact, the team that won this year got the fastest time in recorded history, beating the previous record held since 1994. So basically a 14-hour wire-to-wire sprint with these three teams, finishing just a few minutes from each other. All right, if you look in the show notes, you're going to find a couple of links to YouTube videos to get more information about the sport and the website on the Osaba River Classic. And remember, there's going to be an event at the Austin Rowing Club coming up this fall. More information to follow. There'll be a rowing clinic on ergs. There'll be stretching with a yoga instructor, and there'll be a boot camp style workout led by me. And then afterwards, we'll hang out on Lady Bird Lake, do some stand-up paddleboard, have some fun, and celebrate this beautiful time of year to be in Austin, Texas. So be on the lookout for more details on that. Don't forget to share the podcast if this really spoke to you, and thanks again for listening to the Mindset Forge podcast.